Hello and welcome to the next part of the CRK Fishing Podcast. This time, it's not so much about rod building itself, but more about the question, why are some rods capable of things that other rods simply cannot do, and what is actually the reason behind it? And we'll also talk about some very special constructions. And honestly, if after this video you still don't feel like trying one of those rods yourself, then I really don't know what else to say. But tell me, which rod has really stayed in your mind? A rod where you say, I will remember that rod forever. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one you personally fished with, but maybe one you built for a customer. I can definitely answer that. It was actually the prototype of the very first Far&Fast Solitip fly rod. I still fish it today. And when you hand it to someone and they go out casting with it without knowing what it is, they usually say, that thing feels like a brand new fiber blank. Was that the rod you once let me cast with? Could very well have been. Yes, that rod completely fascinated me. I fish everything with it. I had it with me in Argentina, in Canada, everywhere. It's a two-piece, line class 5, just under 8 feet long, and by the way, it was built on a spin blank. The combination really blew me away back then. The first time I had a Solitip rod in my hands, it was honestly eye-opening for me. Because just like you explained earlier, it's relatively stiff, but not overly stiff. It has a really good backbone, and then that tip still handles short lines extremely well, forms very tight loops, and with the triangle taper lines I distribute, it's just absolutely perfect for that kind of line. That's why I immediately had my Alios rods converted, and then also the two-handed rods. That's super nice as well. Honestly, these rods become addictive. That's something I experience with many customers too. A lot of them had a broken rod tip at first and were skeptical in the beginning. And I don't really do huge advertising for it. Most of it spreads by word of mouth. Then the rod comes back to them, you don't hear anything for a while, and suddenly the feedback arrives. At the same time, 2 or 3 more rods come in that aren't even broken yet. And then they say, I want that on my rods too. That's because people realize how incredibly good it actually is. The same thing happened to me. There's actually a video on YouTube from when I visited Billy Pate, sometime around 1993 or 1994. Back then I showed him those tarpon rods, also with the extension adapters. And even the association officials were standing there just shaking their heads. Then we went outside to cast, and Billy told me he had just recently signed a contract with another manufacturer. Billy Pate, that's the guy with the tarpon world record, right? Exactly. I can send you the link to the video sometime. Yes, I'd really love to see that.
Das Video kann ich dir mal den Link schicken.
Ja, das wäre nice, dann blenden wir vielleicht jetzt ein.
Können wir auch unten verlinken.
Genau.
And with your rods you also fished for tarpon. Of course.
Deine.
Those are monsters.
Also mit deinen Routen hast du auch schon auf
Basically
Tarpon
giant herrings.
Ja, das sind ja
Like normal herrings, just multiplied by 100.
Ja, warte mal.
During those 3 weeks I was there, I built a tarpon rod too.
Mal 100.
That monster rod. The one with the 3 tips. Exactly. 10, 11 and 12 weight. Absolutely insane. Against fish like that, those giant silver monsters, that's a completely different game. But I still have a question. I honestly don't know much about it. What exactly is a solitip?
Was genau ist eine Solitip?
A solitip is solid material that is more flexible. A rod blank is normally built from hollow material. There's a mandrel, carbon fiber gets wrapped around it, and toward the tip it becomes hollow and thinner. When a rod bends, an oval deformation happens. If you take a normal tube and bend it, the upper and lower sides get compressed together, while the side walls spread outward. The same thing happens in a rod blank. You usually can't see it, but technically you could measure it. And near the tip, the problem becomes bigger because the inner diameter gets smaller and smaller. My fingers stay the same thickness, but the hole inside becomes narrower. That means the force required to continue that bend all the way into the tip simply stops around the last 20 centimeters. The rod bends more in the area before the tip than in the tip itself. And that can't really be intentional.
Es biegt sich im hinteren, in den 20 Zentimetern vorher mehr, also im Verhältnis mehr, als
So the usual solution is to grind the material thinner and thinner toward the top. But the logical result is it breaks easier. Of course, it also responds easier, but it becomes weaker. With solid material, you don't get that oval deformation in the same way. So instead of those last 30 centimeters remaining too stiff, that hollow section gets removed, solid material gets inserted there, and then the bending curve continues naturally the way it should continue. And because the material itself is thinner, the tip even becomes lighter, while at the same time becoming more stable. The material I use comes from a manufacturer I've worked with for over 40 years. I told them, don't change anything about it. It's still exactly the same material today.
Immer noch der gleiche?
Ist immer noch der
Ja,
gleiche,
mega.
ja. Und das
Zeitlos.
Solid-Tip, das was ja jetzt auf dem Markt
And the
gekommen
solid
ist,
tips that appeared on the market around 10 to 15 years ago, especially on UL rods and things like that, often start splitting.
Ja, nimmt er,
That's because the resin matrix is different. After a certain amount of time, those tips begin to split open. A normal solid tip is basically only longitudinal fibers that are ground down. And somewhere, those fibers eventually end. Through the constant movement, those sanded fiber ends can slowly start lifting. And then the whole thing begins to split apart. Exactly. And then they come to Jürgen and get the proper thing installed. Johannes Deitel also always fished with solitip rods.
ja, der Johannes Dietl hat auch
I
mit
was
dem
with him in
Solitip
Spain at the Ebro
gefischt.
once,
Mit dem war ich
and he
manchmal
also
in-
received
Da
some
hat er
newer
auch
rods
seine
with
neuen
solid
Kunden bekommen,
tips.
irgendwie auch mit Solitip.
Yes, maybe he'll send you one sometime too,
Nicht Solid-Tipp, sondern Solid-Tipp.
but not solid tip,
Ja, das
solitip.
sind die, die kaputt gehen.
Die nicht
Exactly,
original.
because those other ones are the ones that break.
Nein, ist kein Problem. Ich sage das einfach. Nein,
So, und wenn ihr euch jetzt fragt,
And if
was
you're
im
wondering
nächsten
what's coming in the
Teil
next
wohl
part,
kommen wird,
just wait and see.
überraschen.